What is up, y'all? And welcome to episode 43 of the Dirty Boot Sports Podcast. Tonight, we have got special guest Jake Crain with Crain and Company. He's going to do a little guest interview with us. We're excited to have him on the show. And after that, we're going to follow it up with some college football week 3 preview.
So
Jake,
it's the Darren Sproles episode?
yeah, man.
Oh, it is.
Sproles.
Yeah, that's right. I thought that's all we need to go. Just Sproles.
43,
yeah.
Marcus Williams for the Saints. Don't know what he wears for the Ravens.
Yeah, I don't know where the Ravens either. He left us, so I'm not worried.
Yeah,
Hey, be nice.
He had a play that, oh no, he didn't make the play. Never mind.
Shut up. Like, you're a Saints fan.
Yeah.
So we've got Jake. Peyton, you want to tell us a little bit about him, how you found him? And
Man, I'm being a podcast junkie, I guess. I'm always searching and looking for people to listen to. And I first heard him, I want to say I was on Jordy Collada show is where I first maybe heard you on. And I thought, let me check this out. He was very informational on my LSU Tigers, first of all, but also SEC. And so I said, that's right. That's all I want to listen to anyway. So I started listening to you. I guess it was maybe a year ago or so. And then when you went to the volume, I was like, man, he's just growing. I felt like you just kept getting bigger and bigger. And now you're with the Daily Wire. So just, I guess, tell us, man, how you started out doing this.
Yeah. Well, number one, I appreciate you guys having me on. In all actuality, I'm just, waiting to wake up from a coma and somebody tell me like where I got hit, like what highway. 'Cause it's been wild for real. I mean, I've only really been doing this for 2 years. Played at South Alabama, coached there, coached 9 years, 6 at the Division I level, and was coaching during, COVID. We got sent back. The players got sent back too, and I just started fooling around with this. And again, like I had no idea. Like I would love to, come up here and say I had this master plan of how to take advantage of the quarantine, but it, really was kind of organic, which I guess, the best things in life really are. So I just went, I had this old laptop. My school laptop was still up where I was coaching. And long story short, I just got on there and just started talking. It was, really about football and basketball as well. And just, trying to bide time. And man, it just, kept getting bigger and bigger. And I started getting reached out to by people for sponsorships. I'm like, hey, I didn't know how much like a 30-second ad read is. I was like, I'll do a month of them for $1,500. They're like, all right, we'll do it. And I'm like, what? Like, for real? Like, I looked up, I Googled or whatever. But nah, man, and got to the point really about, 3 months into it, 3.5 months into it, I was supposed to fly back where I was. And I called our head coach and was like, look, man, and I was actually interviewing for the DC job at the time. And I was like, look, man, I'm going to try this thing out. And so I came back and just was like, all right, well, if I'm going to try and do it, then I'm going to try and go all out. So I was doing like a show every day. It took all my technological knowledge to figure out how to get it on like Spotify and Apple and all that. That was like the Steve Jobs moment for me. And so I got it on Apple and Spotify and got reached out to by these investors in Atlanta. And they're like, hey, we want to move you because I was in Mississippi. They're like, we want to move you to Atlanta and put you on video because I was just doing audio. And so they moved me to Atlanta. I live in Marietta. We started LLC. A couple months after that, Colin Cowherd cold emails us and it's like, hey, we want to set up a meeting. So I'm like, this is just the wildest thing that ever happened. So we fly out to LA, meet with Colin, come back. We do a 6-month deal with the volume. And then while we're renegotiating, Ben Shapiro messages me on Twitter. And he's like, hey, man, I've been listening to the show. I really like it. Hey, that's like LeBron being like, hey, man, you're good at basketball, Or like, Ted Williams being like, man, you got a good swing on you, it's like that. So, I was like, thanks, man, I appreciate it. And so we started talking with them and long story short, Ben and them were like, we want y'all to be like the national sports show for us because at the J-Boy show where I was before, we were just college football and SEC. And I always felt like, I wanted to be able to talk about all of it. Now we all know which one's king. I mean, nobody's over here saying untruths, but no, it's wild, man. And the show's going great. We just had, our first video hit over 500,000 views. So we're really excited.
good deal, man. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I did have to look you up when Peyton was like, man, I think I caught a big fish here with an interview. And then like, your rise has been relatively fast. So the only reason I didn't know who you were. Then I saw Daily Wire. I was like, oh my God. Like I kind of nerd out a little bit on Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson and all that. Yeah, I was pretty excited about that. Now, Ben Shapiro, right? Is he really a big baseball fan?
Huge baseball fan. Big White Sox fan. We just did about a 30-minute sit down with him and hit a bunch of different topics. But his dad is like a baseball encyclopedia. His dad's awesome. Like Mr. Shapiro's absolutely. He can tell you like what pitch Sandy Koufax threw, on a 2-2 count and like random regular season game back in the day. So I always enjoy talking with him and his dad about it as well. And, he came on our show and called the Warriors in 6 too. I got to give credit where credit's due, but we actually just started a fantasy league. So I'm ready to square up with him and really kind of, show him the truth.
Well, good deal, man. I think I'm
That's your feeling.
So this was where Colin was right, correct?
Say it again.
This is where Colin was right.
You talking about for us to go the volume?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If Cowherd came to you, you're not going to say that you were the wrong part of one of the segments, right? Colin was right.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, I'll tell you something funny about that. So, I had never been to Los Angeles before in my life. We played at San Diego State. We played at UC Davis. So we go out to LA and like, I don't have any of my bearings. Like we flew first class. I'd never flown first class before. So we fly out there. We land. I don't know where I'm at, man. But so we're supposed to stay at this hotel, like kind of on the beach or whatever. And so I still don't know where I'm at. I'm, getting my bearings. Everything's new. So we get to this hotel, we get our bags and we walk to the back of it. And I go out on the back deck and I'm sitting there and I'm just looking. And so I looked at my brother and I was like, hey man, do you know how many people I have ran over on that beach in Grand Theft Auto? It's the exact math. Yeah, like I'm like, I know where that is. I know where that is. I was like, the things I've done on that pier by that Ferris wheel. On Grand Theft Auto. But for a second, I knew where I was. I actually knew where I was. So that and Rick Ross was on the plane too. That was pretty cool.
Wow. Yeah, we went out there. We went out there in 2021, and I was the exact same way. I was like, I can get us around this entire city. Like,
I was like, look, I think I know a guy that if we need anything, he can get it.
Absolutely.
And then you pulled some poor dude out of his car, shot him, and drove off.
Yeah, well, we were there a couple of days, so we after the meeting, and again, somehow I was with a garage full of unbelievably custom-made cars and motorcycles. So it was just a crazy time.
Good stuff. All right, Ben.
Let me start asking you a question here. If you were, say, the college football commissioner, what would be your first change right now in college football?
I would make it probably my first one is, honestly, I'm a defensive guy. I start calling it offensive targeting, but I won't go. That's a different route. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. I would probably say that if you can, I would change the transfer rule where you can't transfer in conference without having to sit out. I'm fine with you going from Pitt to USC, but I don't like you going from LSU to Alabama with no repercussion on that. I think it's more of a rule kind of change within a rule, if that makes sense.
No, I agree with that. I think the transfer portal doesn't upset me. And apparently it's here to stay, but I don't like when you go to say LSU and you recruited this kid all 3 years in high school and he plays cornerback and he plays cornerback. That's right. Not mention a name and or a single digit. But that coach from say Alabama, you can't tell me during his freshman year at LSU, say he's not getting the playing time, a text message or two doesn't accidentally get sent to his phone, be like, hey man, won't you come, here. Now, if it was a coach from, like you said, at Pittsburgh, it's not going to affect it. So we could care less. Mm-hmm. But these kids that are, especially in the SEC, they get recruited by the same coaches in the same circle there. So that it's not like they delete them from their phone or take them off social media. So
Yeah.
it's going to always be just people coming in and getting who they want when they want.
Yeah, and another way you communicate is through the players. I mean, all these players that go to LSU and Alabama and these places, they all go to camps together. They all know each other. They're all in touch with each other. So I don't even have to, as a coach, text message the player. I'll just be like, hey, man, you want us to try and get your boys with, whoever, shoot them a text message. Say our ears are open or something like that. Or, maybe there's a way to get something done. But, to me, we talk about tampering, right? Like that's one way I think you combat it a little bit. But what's to stop? Let's say if I'm at school A and we're going to have a really good team the next year, we're not sure about our cornerback position and we're playing team B and they have two young corners that are really talented that we'd like to have. What's going to stop me as a head coach from firing our corners coach at the end of the season and hiring their guy and then his guys transfer over with him? Like what's going to stop that? There's so many avenues that could go on, and you're never going to totally stop everything. But my problem, I don't have a problem with NIL. I wouldn't have a problem with the transfer portal, but they let all these things out at the same time, and they didn't have any rules attached to anything. And then you look back and you're like, why is this causing so much chaos? Or why do we kind of not know what's going on? Well, it's because when you release 3 different huge changes at once, and you have no guardrails and you're building the parachute on the way down, how in the hell can you look at me and complain when it's not going perfect or when you're trying to add rules and now nobody wants them? There's an old saying, you can always start hard and get easier. You can't start easy and get harder. That's just the way it works. But, again, what's funny to me is one aspect of the transfer portal that I think we're seeing at least early in the season, now we'll see if this keeps going, is it seems like it's kind of helping parity a little bit, which you will not find me complain about. But that doesn't mean that there doesn't need to be subtle changes or go a different direction in some areas to try and build those guardrails as we go.
Well, I actually talked about that the other night on our podcast, Sunday night, after the App State, the Marshall, stuff like that. I thought it would hurt those teams more because the few good ones that they have was the LSU and Bama's of the world, they're bolting to those schools to try to win something. But I really think it's the opposite. I think your second and third string, 4 to 5-star guys are not playing. They're like, forget this, I want to go play. They're just going to any, whatever school is close to, whatever school is close to their home. They're going to it and get started. I'll start right away. And it's helping 5 schools.
Yeah, well, you got to think about it even deeper too, though. Imagine now there used to be a penalty if, let's say, there was a really good FCS quarterback, like a big time FCS quarterback or a big time D1 AA D2 quarterback. If you were going to transfer up, you had to sit a year. If you transferred down, you didn't have to sit. Well, now if I want to go get a really good FCS quarterback, and maybe I'm Troy or somebody like that, and I didn't get that backup at that big school out of the portal, well, I can just go get him with no repercussion. Hell yeah, he's going to want to leave that FCS school and come play Division I football at a place like Troy or at South Alabama or at Fresno State or someplace like that. That was the part I was interested to see, and it hasn't really affected it as much as what I thought. But I think it's actually helped those group of 5s or those lower level P5s really kind of upgrade themselves.
And I agree with that. I've been, and I want to hear your opinion on this. I know we expanded the playoffs. I wanted to see the group of 5 have their own playoff, have their own national championship.
Yeah.
And what's the reason behind that's not even getting talked about? Like, is it a money deal or is it like, I don't get, we're close to Louisiana Tech. Well, I mean, Louisiana starts the season out every year. They have no chance of winning anything of significance.
Even if they go undefeated.
That's right. But you give them their own playoff, man. Those kids feel like they're getting played for something. And they get stadiums with packed. Because if you have a group of 5 with, say, I don't know, 12 teams, and you have those games the first 2-3 rounds at home, well, we'll go to that if it's a Tech got a playoff game. Them kids get to play in front of sold out stadiums that they're not used to playing at their own stadium.
No, without a doubt. I mean, we had UAB head coach Brian Benson on. He wants one. We're releasing our interview with Clay Helton. Georgia Southern just went and beat Nebraska. We're dropping that for our Saturday special. So everybody check that out. I think we should do it. The argument against it is, okay, well, if we're just going to give a group of 5 playoff, then what would have happened to Cincinnati? Or maybe, if a team like Fresno State or somebody runs the table and in the expanded playoff, and even Clay Helton, I don't want to give anything up. He wants to see, maybe in the Sun Belt, if they can get national enough to where they could be effective in that 12-team playoff. Maybe a Coastal Carolina sneaks in, somebody sneaks in that 12 spot. I really had, 2 different theories. One, you give them their own playoff. I don't think anybody loses in that. And you have schools that we've already seen go from group of 5 that are going to Power 5 schools, right? Houston, Cincinnati. I mean, we're seeing it all over the country now. So if a team does want to do that, more power to you. I don't think that should take away from the crossover games either. Just because they have their own college football playoff doesn't mean that a group of 5 team like Tulane can still play Oklahoma, non-conference early in the year, stuff like that. I don't want to lose that. That helps the group of 5 schools from a monetary standpoint too. My other theory was, why wouldn't you go to 8 teams? Because 12's, I know you didn't ask me about the 12-team number. I'm sure we'll talk about it. But 8 teams where you have an automatic qualifier out of the Power 5s, you have 3 at-larges, and you have 2 separate top 25s. You have a Power 5 top 25, and you have a group of 5 top 25. And that 8th slot is reserved for the team that finishes ranked number 1 in that group of 5 top 25. Because it doesn't just let that group of 5 team get in the playoff. All right, what it does is now if I'm a UAB or something like that, I'm not having to wait on the college football rankings to say, hey, look, we're the number 22 ranked team. I can say, hey, we're the number 3 ranked team in something more that's like our weight class. I think that gives you a little more prominence too. So those were kind of the 2 ways I looked at it. Obviously, they're going with the 12 team.
Do you think 12 was too big right away, or you think they should have went? My thing was always go 7. You go your 5 Power 5 conference champions, 2 wild cards, and then the 1 seed gets a bye. So it makes you earn something with the 1 seed. But I mean, obviously we're going to 12. So.
Here's my thing. Like, I thought 12 was the cap until you start messing with the regular season. And I think people kind of have a misconception of what messing with the regular season means. I'm not saying that it's going to make games less interesting later in the year. It's going to do the exact opposite. You have a 12-team slotted playoff. More teams are going to have a chance later in the year in games that really wouldn't matter outside of a fledgling bowl or maybe a little bit better bowl. The difference between getting a new Xbox or a lounge chair, depending on which bowl you go to. Well, now you have a chance to do more at the end of the year. There'll be more movement. There'll be more excitement. You'll have more you won't have people opting out because more teams will have a chance. You won't totally get rid of it, but you'll lessen it because the lifetime will be longer there. When I talk about messing with the regular season, I'm talking about having to eliminate regular season games, because the more teams you add to a playoff, the more games you have to play in said playoff. And with the way they look at safety protocols and stuff now, even though guys are getting paid through NIL, they are going to monitor how many games are played in college. We already see it in the NFL. It's a big talking point there. So if they're not going to stop at 12, just like they weren't going to stop at 4. So you're never going to get rid of the complaining. Look at the NCAA basketball tournament. The 69th team and 70th team and 71st team complains every single year. So you'll never stop that complaint. It's just, how many games is it going to take before you have to start cutting games out of the regular season? Do we go back to an 11-game regular season like we used to have? That's my thing when it comes to it.
Well, and then when you go back to cutting back, first of all, you're going to mega conferences. So Oklahoma and Texas is joining, looks like probably next year. Okay. Well, your Oklahoma Tulane matchup you were just talking about is for sure going, because your conference will get bigger. They're going to want to play more conference games. And if you cut back, they're going to cut those little regular. They're going to for sure cut the
we're going to lose non-conference games.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what I guess that's what they're wanting or going toward.
Well, yeah, I mean, and look, I don't want that to happen, but if the conferences get big enough, like the SEC is not taking bad teams. So if you're going to play an all-conference schedule like we saw during the COVID year, so there is somewhat of a precedent. Now, that wasn't the amount of teams that you have to have in a mega conference to just play a 12-game regular season in conference. There's probably not going to be a bad game. Can you imagine being like an SEC team and playing a 12-game schedule against a mega conference SEC? That there's no Alabama State, there's no, fledgling group of 5 school. I mean, you're in a fist fight every single week.
Yeah. And
So,
then,
we'll see.
and then to me, you're kind of going away from the safety protocol. Because then you're playing those kind of matchups week in, week out, you know, I mean, like LSU when they played Southern Saturday, I mean, the starters were out of there before halftime. You know,
Yeah, you're like the Little Giants playing Dallas Carter, basically.
yeah. So, yeah.
Crossover right there.
Right. So I had, where's Icebox? Do you see any teams? I mean, I know Washington and Oregon is trying to get in the Big Ten. I mean, is the Pac-12 and Big 12 just, I guess ACC too, are just gonna see what happens and then go from there? Or do you think the SEC is gonna, they're not done?
I think the SEC is done for a little bit. I think they're going to make sure this, acquisition of Texas and Oklahoma goes smooth. If you saw today, I don't know what day we're releasing this, but on Wednesday, which is today, but there'll be another one next week around this time. They just said that the Oklahoma series with SEC teams that were supposed to be non-conference games just got nixed, and they're supposed to be played in 2025. So if you kind of follow the bouncing balls, you heard a couple weeks ago, or I think it may have been last week, that it's looking like Texas and Oklahoma in the Big 12 staying for those extra couple of years isn't going to work out. It's starting to really smell like next year. So I think they're going to get that acquisition done. I think Sankey's going to help lead the charge on this playoff expansion and getting everything in order on that. I mean, he's even said that he doesn't think it can be done by 2026, let alone, even earlier than that. So I think once they get that playoff expansion done, you're going to see some more movement in conferences. But right now, the Pac-10, which that's what it is. It's not the Pac-12 anymore. At least right now, USC and UCLA are out the door. So the Pac-10 seems to be dying a lot more than the Big 12 is. I mean, you got to give the Big 12 credit. This time last year, it was looking like they were a wilting flower, and they've turned it around. I love the ads with Cincinnati and Houston and BYU and UCF. I mean, you're tapping into big markets with teams with a lot of potential. So I think the Big 12's feeling, pretty healthy.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I guess I'm really curious too to see when Texas and Oklahoma do come. I mean, what's your thought of how they're going to divide them? Who's going to what division, do you think?
I don't think there's going to be divisions. I think you're going to get your, couple permanent rivals and everybody else is going to rotate, which, I think is the beauty of scheduling and how it's supposed to be. They say, all right, if you get 3 permanent rivals and everybody else rotates, then everybody will play everybody home and away within a 4-year career. Isn't that the whole point? That's it right there. Like, I'm not Matt Damon from Good Will Hunting, but that math, adds up to me. That's right. Which since that does make a lot of sense, they're probably not going to do it because, again, it's about money, and I don't know how they'll manipulate it into where they get the best matchups possible. But to me, it would be to have everybody play everybody outside of the 3 permanent rivals, which that's going to be an absolute bloodbath and great matchups within those 3 permanent rivals just by adding Texas and Oklahoma. I mean, what's the whole point of scheduling, right?
No, I agree. Texas or Texas A&M in 3 years, who's the better program?
Oh, that's tough.
A&M.
Wow. Oh, not what I was expecting. Are you not?
Look, let Max Johnson play. Like I'm, all I've done all summer on the show, I'm telling you, Max Johnson gives the best chance to win. Best chance to win. Got absolutely just destroyed by A&M fans, and now like Haynes King is out there, panicking more than Jody Foster. I mean, it's just, it's let the man spit. He's got 35 touchdowns and 7 interceptions in his career. Like in LSU last year, y'all know. I mean, it was an absolute toxic disaster. The O-line couldn't block somebody on Facebook. Off the field, it was like watching 21 Jump Street, and yet he still threw 20 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. I mean, like, what else y'all want? Like what? Oh, he doesn't run 4.4. Well, guess what? He's not going to go out there and just absolutely pull a Drew Barrymore from 51st Dates and just forget for 4 quarters because it's the game.
I'm loving the movie references here. Keep it going. Yeah.
We're a movie podcast
The
too.
way I communicate the truth, it makes sense though, right?
It does. It does.
Yeah, really. It does. But you don't feel like Jimbo? I don't know how to really word this. It seems like the offense ever since he's been there hasn't just been phenomenal though. I mean, I think I saw yesterday where he's not put a receiver in the draft since he's been at A&M.
Yeah, but I mean, you quarterbacks he's gotten drafted. I mean, because I'm the type where I'm like, listen, you get them drafted, that's a great job by you. What they do after that is not your fault. Like everybody's like, oh well, he had Jamarcus Russell, You know, got Jamarcus Russell drafted the number 1 overall pick and he was the bust. We got him drafted number 1 overall. Come to my school. You'll get drafted number 1 overall. How about you got Kellen Mond drafted, who couldn't start on a flag football team in half the places the way he throws the ball. He got Christian Ponder drafted, who the best thing about him was when his wife was on ESPN more. I mean, he's getting got EJ got drafted. He made money playing football after college. Like I always laugh because sometimes it's not just about a team. Like Jimbo is the head coach, right? He's obviously the play caller, offense. The buck stops with him. But some places aren't going for that crazy up-tempo style offense that's going to score 45 points. Some places are trying to be balanced. You'd love for the offense to go out there and score 45 points every game. But what you really want is a really competitive offense, really competitive defense that's good on special teams. Because name me one national champion in college football the past 20 years that was one-dimensional as a football team, that was really good on one side of the ball and absolutely bad on the other side of the ball. And even to marry on that, find me another national championship team that wasn't good up front. You can't, because they don't exist. So I think play calling is probably the most overrated thing in the game of football. There's been guys that don't really know anything, that are very base and very simple, that had the best players that won national championships. There are other guys that are absolutely Albus Dumbledore when it comes to coming up with game plans and plays, but they don't have good enough players, so they look like they don't know what they're talking about. Talent plus execution dominates play calling every single day of the week. In the NFL, everybody's basically running the same thing. It's about matchups. Who's got the best players and the best matchups? So, yeah, you can narrowly focus and say, all right, well, the offense hasn't been the most explosive, but they did go 9-1 in 2020. And anybody that uses the COVID year excuse, that excuse sucks. It was everywhere. It wasn't like COVID was like, all right, guys, we're going to Arkansas. Let's just not go to Mississippi or Alabama. Let's just screw over Arkansas or my team. It makes no sense. It was everywhere. So there it is. There's my answer.
Come on.
Yeah, keep going.
All right. My favorite thing you probably, and actually we had Jordy Collado on last week. We talked about it. I love how you use the reference to Brian Kelly. He's the stepfather of LSU Eagles.
Yes. Yes.
And man, he's only been here, I guess, 6 months now, and you can already feel and see the change of what he's doing in the culture. And people around here are diehard and they want to win now. But it's going to take time, and I feel like it's going to take longer than we think.
At least 3 years.
I'm thinking 3 years. Do you think you think that's a good time frame it's going to take?
I mean, are we talking about to win a national championship, or are we talking about to be competitive?
I say,
Competing for a national.
Like competitive against the big dogs.
yeah, big competitive, big dog.
Alabama again.
Yeah, and maybe getting to Atlanta, I guess.
Yeah, I think 3 is a good number. I'll say this, what you're referencing again, when you talk about taking a football program that's in the SEC, that has the cachet of LSU, so the potential's there, and nobody's going to argue that. You're the only school in the state that anybody cares about, in the state that's saturated with talent, that loves football. It's y'all and the Saints. It's like fixing an economy. You don't fix an economy over 1 month. You don't fix an economy over 3 big decisions. You fix an economy over 2 years, making a lot of good small decisions that lead to a final result that is better than where you found it. The couple things I will say that is in LSU's favor is the portal rules. It's a lot easier to flip a roster now than it was before any of this transfer stuff, because getting guys that are able to play at that level without having to sit a year is humongous, especially up front. That's where LSU is going to bridge the gap. They've always had good skill players. Even in y'all's worst years, y'all have good skill players. The difference is, if you want to compete right now with the Alabamas and the Georgias, it comes down to your offensive line and your defensive line and the depth. Now, what happened to Mason Smith is just unfortunate. I still don't think LSU's defensive line from a depth standpoint is where it needs to be for them to be able to compete at the highest level. They were good in the front 4 starting off. You heard some flashes about some young guys behind him and some other guys figuring it out, and we know there's talent there, but they don't have the depth necessary to sustain a full season in the SEC and be able to, at the end, be effective in the pass rush and stop the run without having to bring pressure or do any run stunts. The offensive line is not close. It's not even close right now. That's the biggest area where LSU has to improve, because I don't care what type of offense you run. If it's the triple option, if it's the air raid, if it's the spread, if it's the spread option, if you can't run and you can't protect the passer, you're not going to win. That's why everybody that said, oh, Jaden Daniels isn't very good, BS. He was running for his life. As an Auburn guy, I know what a bad offensive line looks like. I watched Bo Nix run around for his life. Y'all last year watched him run around for his life and pull a Patronus spell. That's like my third Harry Potter reference in the middle of the field to win the game. LSU's got an offensive line problem. And if you have an offensive line problem, you have a winning problem. The minute that gets fixed is the minute y'all will get back to where y'all are supposed to be.
And we're heading that direction. And with Will Campbell there, there's another one, Emory Jones.
Yeah. Will's going to be really good. He's getting great experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. He's kind of a local guy. So we're definitely.
You got another one right there from Neville.
And we have another one from his same school that's a 5-star that just committed with us too. It was his right tackle when he was at Neville.
Neville must be where the lab is, where they're just creating them. Brian Kelly was like, lab operational. They're like, yeah.
No, I agree. I really think that it's just going to take time. And I think also too, Louisiana is absolutely saturated with talent. And I think you close the fence for sure. That's going to be a big thing for us. But what I love about Brian Kelly's staff is how national they're going to be able to recruit now. LSU probably, when O got there, he started trying to do that. We never really went, Northeast and a lot of West. We kind of just stayed Southeast regional in recruiting. And with Brian Kelly's staff, what I loved about him, he got his 3 to 4 Louisiana guys that he knew he needed, and Frank Wilson and guys like that. But he also got guys like kind of here and there that can get us guys that we've never been able to get before. And we've always, in my opinion, the Alabamas and the Georgias of the world and Clemson, they go get those guys. And I think that's going to help us a lot too.
Yeah, well, again, I think you pick and choose guys outside, again, that supplement that roster that you build out of Louisiana. But because to me, I think you got to make sure that you're getting it, and you should. LSU should never have a problem recruiting Louisiana. And I agree with you. Having those guys on staff that have those connections, that have had a lot of success in the state is smart. You just can't start going, too far outside the garden to go, taste some fruit from somewhere else. It's good to go pick an apple or a pear or, maybe a couple, bushel of strawberries or something to add on to the dessert. But you got everything you need in Louisiana, that panhandle right there in Florida. LSU doesn't need to be going to Ohio all the time to find guys. That they can find maybe 1 or 2 there that can supplement. But I think Brian Kelly's got a good mix of it. And look, LSU's a national brand. I mean, kids in California know who LSU is. Kids in Idaho know who LSU is. So that obviously helps.
Yeah, every DB and wide receiver for LSU should be from Louisiana.
Yes.
Every single one of them is from Louisiana.
Yeah, and you know what? If you go to Texas and steal a kid that runs 4.35, great. Great.
Yeah, that's right. No, I agree with that. I guess and another thing, because it's kind of started talking about, which when they lost Saturday, it didn't help. But I say another 3 to 4 year question. Do you think LSU's program is going to be better than Florida and Billy Napier?
Yes. Well, again, we say better. I mean, what if? I mean, are we saying like better every year, or are we saying like LSU just going to be better than Florida every year? Because to me, football is cyclical, and you're going to have ups and you're going to have downs when you play in as competitive a conference of this as the SEC is. So if we're saying over a 5-year span, do I think LSU is going to win a national championship before Florida? Yeah. Do I think LSU would win the division before Florida? Yeah, I'd probably say that. But I don't think there's going to be some humongous gap where Florida's this terrible team and LSU's this elite team or versa. I think, places like LSU and Florida, they have staying power. You're a state school. We all know the success Florida's had in the past. So, when we're going to say better, I think we got to define what that is, like how wide that gap is, right? Like what are we saying is better? So I think LSU will be better overall when it comes to winning championships. But do I think Florida will be fine? Yes.
You know, get into some NFL stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
let's do that.
Yeah. What would your
What's
take?
that?
week
No,
one
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
What did you say?
I said, what's NFL? No, I'm just kidding.
What was your takeaway in week one in the NFL? Do you have anything that surprised you?
Chiefs are good.
Or the Cardinals.
No,
are
my takeaway was, I mean, obviously you look at the Giants, Brian Daboll, you know, I never thought I'd say, you know, man, Daniel Jones has some stones, but the Titans defensively, I couldn't believe they got gashed the way they did. I know Saquon's an alien, but, you know, with Mike Vrabel, you know, and somebody that had Derrick Henry on their fantasy team, which, you know, I don't want to talk about that. I was shocked by that. The way the Colts played, you know, the Texans with Lovie Smith, the Colts adding Matt Ryan. I was shocked that, you know, the game, they were lucky the game ended up in a tie. I mean, they were down 20-3 and it wasn't close the whole game. But, you know, the Saints, man, the Falcons did the best job of tanking in game one that I've ever seen in my life. They've got everybody.
No doubt.
Nobody's talking about it. It was the great. I think Arthur Blank has a deal with Marcus Mariota. He's like, Marcus, listen, I'm so like, you think you're rich, you're poor compared to me. But like, you're a compared to the amount of money I have. I will give you $500 million if you just pretend to try really hard and get us close and lose. It's like, you know, they like went to him when he had that fumble and they're like, hey, like in the headset, they're like, Marcus, Arthur Blank just beat down here. And he said, trust the dragon. That's what he told us to tell you. And Marcus goes, oh, they get the ball. The greatest job of tanking. Hats off to the Falcons. What an unbelievable job.
Yeah.
Yeah, we appreciate that they did too.
We do.
Yeah, man. Look, that was, you know, the defense. I'm looking at Dennis Allen like, all right, come on, man. Like you're the defensive guru. You got Honey Badger back there. You know, he's in Louisiana, so his powers are like +5. Like, what's going on?
Yeah. Maybe that's what Jameis did in the blue tent. Maybe he called Blank up and he was like, hey, we have a deal. We have a deal here.
Yeah,
Like,
It's like on the new Longest Yard movie with Adam Sandler when he like meets him after halftime.
yeah, that's it. That's it.
Exactly. Like,
What's your opinion on Jameis Winston?
man, you know, it's funny. I think Jameis, and look, he's made mistakes. We all know about everything at Florida State. He's one of those guys that's like goofy athletic, you know, like that. It's like running backs that they're strong and they're fast and they're big, but they run funny. Like those guys are harder to tackle. Like you're used to tackling people that run like normal. Like when I see Jameis, he's like almost always falling down and defenders are confused because you don't know if he's falling down and you can't hit him. And then he'll throw it like 40 yards like this, like in some weird way on a dime. And I mean, the two passes he made to Michael Thomas, the first one, you know, that laser fade, as you want to call it, where he just threw the BB on top of the corner's helmet, that was an absolute dart. And then the second one he put in the back hip as Michael was going down, I mean, that was just absolute pure emotion and chemistry. So Jameis is like just goofy athletic, man. Like you see him move around the pocket. You know, he's like, looks like he's on roller skates, like a newborn giraffe on roller skates. And you're like, how's this guy any good? And then you look up and he threw for 325 and 3 touchdowns and ran for 65 yards. You're like, what? Wait, what? You know, he's like the kid that you always like, you know, get picked about halfway through for dodgeball. And then you find out like, you know, once you got older that he's pitched for the Rockies for 4 years. Like it's just, some people just figure it out.
That's a very good analogy for sure. Yeah, because that throw he threw to Landry down the sideline with less than a minute left. I mean, he wouldn't even really, his feet weren't even in the position to throw it. He threw it for about yards.
Jameis is, look, if Jameis was a painter, he wouldn't be like somebody just paints like normal stuff. He wouldn't be like Andy Warhol. He'd be like Jackson Pollock, where you just got the bucket of paint, threw it, and smeared yourself all over it, and somehow it, you know, sells for $10 million. Like it just, that's who he'd be. Like, you know, the paint you look at and you're like, it looks like you dropped the paint, like, and you screwed up, and now I'm too embarrassed to say it, but it made more money than I will in my whole life.
Sometimes I wonder with Jameis if, you know, that 30 interception season just kind of hangs over his head. He came into New Orleans following up Drew Brees, who is efficient with the football, protects the football. And, Jameis hasn't thrown a lot of picks for us,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's almost like, hey, man, it's all right. Don't worry about it. Just cut it loose, man.
Yeah.
Just go.
Yeah. Does he cringe every time he probably sees the number 30? Yeah, but I think he's gotten past it. I think, Jameis is far enough along now in his career where he understands, you learn from those mistakes because you watch them and you see them and you see what you did. And what I've noticed is when he still takes chances, but he's not taking like crazy chances on every play. He's not doing something. He's not trying to score a touchdown on every play. And once you kind of learn that, it becomes a little bit easier and you stop turning the ball over as much.
Yeah, we talked about here on 5. We were like, we're not wanting a perfect season out of him. If he could give us, say, 35 touchdowns and 15, 16 interceptions, we won't be mad.
No.
Well, y'all need to be a team that's efficient on offense and is built around the defense. I mean, that's what y'all need to be, because it doesn't all need to be on Jameis. Jameis is a good player, but he's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not a guy, not Josh Allen. A guy where you're like, all right, you're good enough to carry us through against anybody. Jameis just needs to make the right decisions and say the right stuff, and just let that goofy athleticism work, man. It's a real thing.
No, I agree. I guess more on the NFL right quick. If you're Dallas, if you're the GM at Dallas right now, do you make the Jimmy G trade? Do you just sit there and see what happens, or what would you do?
If I'm the GM, that means I'm Jerry Jones, and if I'm Jerry Jones, look, I'm just going. No, I don't care anymore. Y'all.
I'm a billionaire, baby.
I mean, yeah. I think Jimmy G's the best available. But I don't know if anybody watched how Trey Lance looked in the first game. I think the Niners may be like, hey, Jimmy, you remember we re-signed you as a backup quarterback for all that money? How do you want to be the starter? How would you like that? I think he's going to end up being the starter for the Niners. I think the Cowboys are just an absolutely dysfunctional organization that I have no problem pointing a finger and laughing at, because, you got Jerry Jones up there who's just hires anybody that'll say yes. I mean, let's really think about it, right? Chan Gailey, Dave Campo, Jason Garrett, Wade Phillips, and even Wade was like, "No, screw this. You can just fire me or whatever." It ran Jimmy Johnson out of town. And now Mike McCarthy, who looks like the dad off every sitcom ever. You think any of those guys are telling Jerry Jones no? Like, you think those guys like, Jerry, I think that's an absolute terrible idea. What an idiotic idea. No, nobody's saying that to Jerry Jones. So he's going to keep trying to make moves in his ivory tower, and it's not going to work. And Dak's overrated. And, their offensive line gets hurt more than a high school girl's feelings. And it's unfortunate because Tyron Smith's had a great career, and Zach Martin, all those guys. It's just a dysfunctional organization. And then you don't make any moves. Like, you made no moves. You got rid of Amari Cooper. Who'd you bring in? Who plays receiver of the Cowboys outside of CeeDee Lamb? Michael Gallup? He's hurt. Dalton Schultz? Good tight end. Who else you got? Nobody. Absolutely nobody. And Zeke's working out at curves. I mean, it just, I
don't.
So who's your NFL team that you root for?
Man, here's the crazy part. Like, I grew up in the state of Alabama. Like, my father played for the Packers and the Oilers, the Texans. Now, I've really never had an NFL team. Like, I watch it, love it, because I love football, but I'm not like, yeah, man, can't wait for the Saints to come on today, or like, man, the Falcons, man, rise up, or anything like that. I just like watch it and talk about it. So I really don't have a team.
College? You have besides Auburn? I mean, that's your thing.
Besides Auburn, what do you mean, dog? Like, you can only have one, right?
Hey, well, I mean, what the.
You're not one of those guys that's like, yeah, I'm an LSU fan, a Duke fan, Warriors fan.
Hey, well, we have a couple of those on here.
Oh no, guys, come on.
I've been a Warriors fan since 2012, so it counts. It counts.
Wait, okay, so 10 years, statute of limitations. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
You're in your congrats on your 10th year. You're like a citizen now. Like, technically, you can be a fan.
And you were like 11 years old at that
I
time.
was,
too.
yeah.
He was a kid, so I get a pass on that.
Oh, okay. You're 11. Okay. Oh, my bad. Jeez.
It's statutory.
I didn't mean to just destroy the 11-year-old you. Like, I didn't. I wouldn't.
You got any gambling picks this weekend that you like, college or NFL?
Man, yeah. So the way we do it on Crain and Company is we do 2 bets a day outside of the weekend. We do 6 college bets and 6 NFL bets. So we have 6 slots to fill. Now we can wait till Saturday morning to release those, or you can take sharps. So I always like taking some of the sharps. Like for example, I got Kansas at plus 10.5. It's down to 8.5 right now. Going to play Houston, Kansas. I'm telling you, man, it ain't your grandma's Kansas. That quarterback they got's a problem. And he's making good decisions. That coach that came over from Buffalo is a real one. Lance Leopold, like a lot of people slept on that hire a little bit. He's a real one. I got Bama minus 49 against La Monroe. It's up to 49.5. Those poor kids from La Monroe. They're going to be like the first wave they sent through like the hot gates to fight Leonidas and them that just had no idea what they were getting into. And then I got absolutely destroyed very quickly. So like Bama minus 49.5. Kansas State at home. The Green Wave. Look, I'm not over here trying to trash talk Tulane. I didn't sign up for that. I got a lot of respect for Willie Fritz, but Kansas State, Deuce Vaughn, Adrian Martinez gets out of Nebraska, and all of a sudden football's easier. It's amazing how that works. So I got Kansas State minus 13.5. What was the other one? Oh, Washington State minus 16.5 at home against Colorado State, it's now I think it's 17.5. Colorado State is just. I mean, it's almost they're gonna have to send FEMA out there. It's such a disaster. They're gonna send like trailers and food and doctors, like geologists and stuff. It's just a problem.
Like it.
I like it.
How about Auburn this weekend?
Next question.
TJ,
Look, here's my thing. It's Auburn, man. Now, like it's Auburn. The crazy things happen in Jordan-Hare, but we're not very talented. Like we don't have outside of Tank and Jarquez and Tank and Jarquez on offense. It's not really great. I mean, Chick Dawson, wide receiver, I like him. I think Camden Brown's going to be fine. Our tight end room's okay. But our offensive line, we just look like a group of 5 school offensive line. You know, like we don't look like Auburn normally looks. Like I look at us and I'm like, yeah, Georgia Southern for sure. Like when I look at our offensive line, I'm not like, oh my God, like these guys look, unbelievable. And the thing is, when you watch them, the worst part is it's one thing if you're not getting your assignment right. You know what I'm saying? It's one thing if you're screwing up, busting assignments. It's another if you're getting your assignment right, you're just not good enough against, I don't know, San Jose State. Like those are the things that worry me. And we'll see. Some crazy will happen. I already said Auburn's going to start out 5-0 this year. I've said it. Because I've seen how Auburn is. LSU will come to Auburn, and y'all be winning the whole game. And then something crazy will happen late. Like Auburn will be up 1. Y'all have like a Hail Mary at the end. Like all our DBs will fall down. Your guy will be running full speed, and the Eagle will come grab the ball or something. Like something crazy will happen to Auburn, be 5-0, and everybody's gonna be like, Brian Harson's Pat Dye told you guys. The burn in hell boosters. And then we'll go to Georgia and it look like we're bringing a team from Friday Night Tights up there to play the Titans and get destroyed. Then we'll lose at Ole Miss. Then we'll lose at Mississippi State. Somehow the refs will hand us the Arkansas game at home. I just look, it's 7-5. Okay. It's 7-5. It smelled like 7-5. I just can't wait to, be let down after the 5-0 start. Can't wait. Auburn will win. Auburn will beat Penn State by 10. Watch. It'll be something crazy like that. Auburn will play out of their minds and give everybody hope. And that's the worst part.
Let's be honest. I think y'all going to be definitely looking for a coach this offseason. Is there any names that you... Hugh Freeze, please. Like literally, Giants, help us, God.
Yeah.
Do you think if he gets that offered, I mean, you think the SEC is going to allow it? I mean, wasn't there a thing?
Well, look, number one, it's been enough time, okay? Like they let Urban Meyer back on TV. Like really, like let's not act like Hugh Freeze coming back to the SEC wouldn't be a huge story, a huge national story. Like I think Greg's like, listen, don't hire Hugh Freeze unless you really, really, really want to. And then I have to say something bad about you. but I'm not going to just totally block him if somebody did want to hire him. But y'all heard me say that. We write that down for the record. Y'all heard me say that. Don't hire Hugh Freeze unless you have to, and then do it. But I'm going to be mad. That's what I think. That's exactly how I think the conversation went.
I think he'd be a great hire for Auburn too.
I think he would too. Come on, you beat Bama with Bo Wallace. Bring that guy. Bring that guy. Bring that guy. Please. That Bama team with Bo Wallace, who sounds like, the guy who plays band and or drums in Morgan Wallen's band.
That's true. Nebraska, who gets that job? Who wants that job?
Man, I think Trev Alberts is a good AD. Like, they'll hire somebody like Matt Campbell or something. They'll go super safe. Like, we're bringing in Matt Campbell to make sure everybody, is just nice to everybody and everybody plays hard for Nebraska. They're going to hire a Nebraska-style guy, and it's just not going to work. It's not going to work. You know the average distance of a signee for Nebraska's recruiting class last year from the campus to where that signee lived was? 532 miles.
Ooh.
You know what distance was? 32. Nebraska, this in the 70s or the 90s. These kids don't know who Nebraska is. They're not going to go. You're not going to get the elite of the elite to go out to Nebraska unless there's something exciting there. They need somebody young, exciting. Hell, I think they should hire Hugh Freeze. They won't. They're going to hire somebody that's like, he's going to do it the right way. And you know what? Good. But you need a winner, okay? You don't need a choir boy. You don't need an Eagle Scout to come in there and show all the players how to, make fire out of sticks and stones and what type of bird that is. You need to be able to go get players that can line up and block somebody or guys that can rush the passer and looks faster than, I don't know, Northwestern. So at the end of the day, Nebraska needs to do something that's cool. Do something that's cool. Scott Frost wasn't cool. He had one good year because of Josh Heupel. He went 7-6 and then went undefeated. Mike Riley fell apart. And they're like, oh, Scott Frost, please, come save us. We'll do anything for you. And he was unproven. And you see what happens. Just fool's gold, man. It's Chris of Oak Island all over again. They're never going to find it.
Oh, I knew when LSU receiver Trey Palmer transferred up there, which he never saw the field much. He did some punt return and stuff. He was a good athlete. And I'm sitting there watching that Nebraska game open a week 0, I guess.
He looked like an Avenger, out there against everybody else.
That's right. And he couldn't even get on the field at LSU. But I mean, it's
again. Do you see their defensive ends? Listen. I get it. I get what you're trying to do, but it's not going to work. You got to go get a Kendall Riles, man. Get if they're smart, they try and go get Jamie Chadwell from Coastal. But I don't think Jamie would take that. I wouldn't take that job if I'm Jamie. Hell no.
I think he'd pull the Billy Napier and turn it down.
I'm with you. I think he would too. It says Coastal Carolina. You know where that means I'm at? On the coast. My school's rich. Unbelievably rich. Richer than anybody knows.
That's right.
And Scott Frost wasn't a champion at UCF, right? So that's a national champion.
National champion?
Yeah. They were champions.
Parents? It's like that's you're I get it, you went undefeated and it was out of your control. But y'all were gonna get just absolutely mopped. But you think Auburn cared about that game? They just lost to Georgia with a chance to go to the playoff. And it was and Carry on Johnson was like Mr. Potato Head after that game. His legs and arms were laying all over the field. It just, again, you had a great year. Congrats. But that's to me, it's in high school if the JV team went undefeated. They're like, yeah, we won state. It's no, you didn't. You went undefeated in the JV, so that's great. Congrats. Y'all beat the middle school team against their 2s and 3s. That's great. This has got a bright future. The high school coach is happy. But y'all didn't win state.
Well, I think that's about it for this one. This is really fun interview here. Y'all got anything else to say?
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Appreciate it a lot, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
We might love to have you on again, maybe sometime later down the football season, and talk more when closer to college football playoffs start and stuff like that. It'd be all
When Auburn starts that 5-game skid.
That's right.
Yeah, can't wait. No, I appreciate you guys having me on, and yeah, man, whenever y'all want, you can check us out. Just go to YouTube, type in Crain and Company. It's CRAIN and Company. We just had Brett Favre Got Tom Luganville coming on tomorrow, Tim Brando coming on Friday. We're talking everything college football and NFL, man. I appreciate it, guys.
Absolutely. Hey, and ask him, Brenda, why he blocked me from Twitter.
Sure, that'll be the first thing I ask him.
Appreciate it, boy.
All right, thanks.
All right, good.